Welcome to Rambam in Depth. Today we'll be discussing the Rambam Hilchas Maaseh Perek Aleph Halacha Hey. The Rambam rules as follows: Ha'echel pereisav tevolim v'chein levi she'ochel ha'maaseh b'tivle. If someone eats produce in its state of tevel before it was tithed, same thing would be true with the Levi. Even though he's given Maaser, the tithe that's given to the Levi, he has to separate 10% and give it to the Cohen. So if he ate the Maaser without tithing it, without giving it to the Cohen, even though there's a death penalty in the hands of heaven, you do not have to pay restitution to the owners, to the Cohen. You don't have to give the Cohen the value of the Terumah that you consumed. Why is that? Shenemar, because it says in the Torah, Asher Yerimu Lashem, that which you separated to give to God. You're not entitled to anything until they're separated. In other words, the Kohen does not get any Tevel. The Tevel is not his. It has to be separated, and then the Kohen has a right to take it. So the Sefer Aryeh and Masechta Chulin raises a question. From the Rambam, it seems, when he says, you don't get anything, you're not entitled to anything until you separate the Terumah. That would imply that if you did separate the Terumah, you do have to pay the Kohen. And that's an open contradiction to a Gemara in Chulin that the Rambam codifies. The Gemara in Chulin talks about a person who damages or eats matnas kahuna. So the Gemara said, after he was separated, obviously, it's matnas kahuna, he's exempted from payment. Why? Because it's mammon she'en le tevim. It's money that has no claimant. No one can be claiming that you ate their Terumah, because any Kohen will say, you ate my Terumah. He'll say, I didn't have in mind to give it to you. The owner has Tevas Hanoah, has the right to give it to whichever Kohen he wants. So any Kohen who will claim it, you'll say, you're not the person that can claim it. I was planning to give it to someone else. Therefore, your Patur, you do not have to make restitution. You don't have to pay the Kohen. So it seems over here clearly that even after it's separated, you don't have to pay the Kohen. And from the Rambam, it seems that only because it was Tevel before separation. So the Aryeh answers that if you look in the Rambam changes the language of the Gemara. The Gemara in Chulin says that if a person is mazik, matnas kahuna, or eats matnas kahuna, Patur, he's exempted. The Rambam changes the language, and instead of saying Patur, he says Eina chayiv l'shalom. Why is he emphasizing? That's what Patur means. Patur means you don't have to pay. So why does he say Eina chayiv l'shalom? Because the Rambam is trying to say, yes, it's true. The court cannot force you to pay, but you chayiv b'dei Shamayim. You do necessarily have to lotzis yidei Shamayim, to satisfy the obligation towards heaven. You do have to pay, and such is the psak of Tosfos in Chulin. That means that yes, you don't have the obligation to pay, because no one could claim he's the claimant. You could always say, I meant another Kohen, but lotzis yidei Shamayim, you do have to pay. That's the reason why the Rambam over here, when he says that in Tevel you don't have to pay, and from that we infer that if it was separated, after separation, when it's no longer Tevel, you do have to pay. Yes, it's true, you do have to pay. Not b'dei Adam, not by the hands of the courts, because it's mammon she'en tevim, but by the hands of lotzis yidei Shamayim. So the Rambam is correct in distinguishing between Tevel and after separation. When it's Tevel, not only are you Patur because there's no one who can claim it, because the Kohen has any right to it. Once it's separated, the Kohenim own it, but no one has the ability to claim it. But lotzis yidei Shamayim, you certainly should give it to a Kohen.